Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TLD Chat, another morning or another afternoon, depending upon where you are in the world, obsessing about learning and development, the training, learning, and development chat, hanging out with the community of professionals, talking shop, talking about the work that we do as training and learning and development professionals. And some days where we like to just go all open forum on you and just answer questions from the crowd. But other days we have guests, and today is one of those fantastic days. We have two fantastic folks that I've just met for the first time, and their wonderful podcast that they will tell us about shortly, but I will take 2 minutes to talk briefly about TLD Chat. We are the TLDC. Check us out at tldc.us and consider becoming a member. Also, becoming a member gives you a fantastic discount on our upcoming event, the TLDC 18 event, which is going to be January 29th and 30th in lovely Phoenix, Arizona. As this loads up oh so fast. We'll be at the Galvanize facilities, very geek chic place in Phoenix, Arizona that opened up last year. I think everybody's going to enjoy it. It definitely has the vibe of this community, easy for me to say. And we are building a fantastic program. If you want to check it out, hit up the schedule and the speaker list, and you can see who's already on board. We're still working on it. It is not 100% complete, so be looking for some very, very, very interesting and exciting new keynotes, probably names that you aren't aware of or know, but they have a fantastic story to tell. So I'm really, really excited about having them on board. I just have not had a chance to put it up on the website and craft how we're going to promote them, but I'm very, very excited to have them on board and to have them tell their stories. So, let me just throw out there that one of them has a particular icon in the tech industry included in the story. So some stuff you probably won't hear anyplace else. So that will be fun, and I will tell you all more about that later, obviously. But let's just jump right into our conversation today. What do you say? Most of the world is over at the online learning conference in New Orleans, because really, who wouldn't rather be in New Orleans right now? But for those of us that aren't there, you have the pleasure of hanging out with me for an hour and our wonderful guests, David and Nejc. How's it going, guys?
Very good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Now, everybody knows who you guys are because of your podcast, right?
Well, I don't think everybody. I know the
I think everybody.
So we can reach more.
New people being born every day.
This is exactly why you guys do a great podcast, because you balance each other out well. One glass is half full, the other glass is half empty. It's all good.
Dave, we should prepare more for this.
No, preparation is not what I enjoy. So this is the best. This is the best right here. So let's just start it off, because since we did just meet, I would ask you guys to tell me a little bit about yourselves. So let's just do that, because I'm sure everybody else would like to know too, the juicy backstory of kind of who you are, where you're at, and my favorite question that you should add into your answer is how you got into this crazy industry of learning and development. So David, you want to start with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been doing e-learning for about 18 years, which seems crazy, but I went to college for computer graphics design. So I had a big multimedia kind of background, and, websites are there to kind of explain stuff too. So that kind of led me to, out of college, start working with a couple of e-learning companies, which was kind of newish at the time, what that was. But, that was a lot of like Macromedia, authorware and director and Flash and HTML.
Oh yeah.
And yeah. So, well, HTML is still being used, but, a version of it, but, so I with Flash and all that, I was really interested in how do you, from the multimedia background, how do you kind of marry images and video and audio and all these things into an experience? Yep. And, you know, luckily I've been able to kind of continue that, and I always have an interest in that. And so about 11 years ago, I started a company called the Lumen Group, which is a e-learning development company out of Chicago, so that I could continue, well, you know, have a team of people that enjoy what I like to enjoy. And so while I maybe wear a few more hats occasionally and do a little less development now, I still really enjoy development. And so on the side, I do a lot of, you know, challenge myself to come up and create things. And so the last couple of years, I've created a YouTube channel, eLearning Locker, where I post a lot of videos that just explore the experiments and various things that I kind of challenge myself to do.
Nice, nice. That's what we like to hear. We like the live experiments are always good, and I'm sure Craig is going to drop that link into the chat right about now. Oh nope, that was Mike doing +1. Ah, I was so close. I thought I was going to nail it. You know, we're oh, there you go. All right, I missed it. I knew he was working on it. Thanks, Luis. All right, Nejc, how about you? How did you get into this crazy industry? And give everybody a background on where you're at.
I'm in Slovenia, so that's like ex-Yugoslavia 25 years ago. Yeah, started, short story, by accident.
Like everybody else.
Yeah. So I was super lucky that after high school, I had no idea where to go to study. So I went to the army we had it for 7 months, I think. And then just after that, a school opened called Multimedia Academy. So it was written my name all over it. It had written my name all over it. So I joined that. It was a 2-year school, like specialist school. There I met a guy who worked at a company. So I helped out with some of the multimedia project things and stayed there for 10 years. And they were one of the first e-learning companies here in Slovenia. So I was introduced to you know, different LMSs from open source to corporate, pain in the asses. Then and multimedia and Macromedia Flash, and I managed some projects, managed small teams. But in 2014, the company sort of switched off from e-learning to other stuff. And then at that point, I just figured that I felt like I wanted to continue my e-learning journey. So I just started freelancing, focused on storyline development. And here we are today.
Fantastic. So how did the two of you meet?
Well, actually, it was almost 1 year ago that I sent a direct message to David on Twitter. I think it was like start of October, something like that. And I saw that he had some cool videos about storyline. I saw he's a bit geeky, so right on my level. So I said to him, hey man, you want to chat? And we had a couple of Skype calls. And yeah, e-learning guys happened.
Nice. And I just have to...
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Oh, it comes automatically. Awesome. Cool. I just dialed up.
Facts.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sorry. I forgot about that. There we go. I found your YouTube channel, so I'm going to share that as well. But I just have to say, hearing the backstories of guests and how they, got into the work of training and learning and development is always my favorite part of meeting you people here. So thanks for sharing, guys. It's good stuff. So yeah, so everybody hit up. Here we are. I'm at, wait, where am I? There we go. Learning Locker. It auto-played. That's what kind of threw me for a loop there. But so how many episodes are you guys into the podcast?
Is it 20-ish, I think, 19, 20?
I think we're recording 20 tomorrow.
20.
Nice. And so, what do you like most about, like, what do you focus on? Like, is there anything specific that you like to focus on when you're having the conversation? Do you like to geek out, or is it design related, or a little bit of everything?
It's probably a little bit of everything. I think, there's so many instructional and creative approaches to e-learning and training, but a lot of times we end up with, okay, how do we make this a reality? So it's like, okay, well, what's this tool we're going to use to make it a reality? And we have a enjoyment of using Storyline, Articulate Storyline, and we talk a lot about both the idea of an approach to training, because we always like to just play it up like, oh, well, maybe we could make a video that's interactive, and can you do that in Storyline? And we just kind of have discussions about the idea and how we ended up at hopefully something that works, because there are bugs and there are hurdles and things, and so that's kind of the way it goes.
Yeah. You could say mostly it's Storyline. I mean, that's in like the subtitle of the podcast, so there should be some Storyline, and there is. But yeah, everything related to learning development, it's up our alley. So we try different things. Some of the shows are more thematic. Some of them are like random stuff we have been working on, experiences we had, and we share them with the audience.
Yeah, and we're bringing some more people in and having little segments where people, we meet all these great people as we, just in what we do. And we might see something cool they've done and want to bring them in and have them talk about it. But a lot of it has to do with development and how do you actually get from point A to point B. We're starting this new kind of e-learning guy, ask the e-learning guys too, where we want people to say, hey, I've got this question, and we love coming up with answers and coming up with solutions for things. So that's generally what the podcast is.
It's very, very cool. I know I have listened to it before. I remember I think I probably listened to the first episode, because I think I remember seeing something about it on Twitter, and I was like, oh, excellent. Some other guys doing, e-learning podcast stuff. But then, like I always do, I get distracted and I drop off, but I try.
Yeah.
Have you guys interviewed Kevin Thorne yet?
No.
Oh man, you should. Do you know who he is?
I think I follow him on Twitter, but I cannot remember right now.
So he's a big Storyline user. Does a lot of drawing and artwork stuff. Lately, he's been doing a live Facebook stream of a project that he's been live streaming pretty much every morning for an hour or two, literally going through the process from the very beginning of sketching it out on a piece of paper to building the assets to putting it all in. And it's when he's done with it, it'll be quite the collection of videos for literally walking somebody through how he goes through his development process. It's pretty cool. You should definitely check it out.
Yeah, we'll definitely connect with him. Definitely.
Yeah. No, not Julian. Kevin Thorne. Craig. Yes.
If I can add one more thing about the podcast. I've been doing a podcast here in Slovenia about Apple and related tech since 2012, and we have 180 episodes. So, well, a bit less when I contacted Dave last year, but I knew how to produce them. I wanted to do a e-learning show for a while, and I was just looking, just like scoping Twitter for the right candidate. So that was the initial recruitment chat with Dave that I had.
Yeah. No,
Twitter's great for that, right?
it was great that Nate's had some of that experience because I had no idea how to do a podcast. So,
Well, so what's been the biggest challenge with doing the podcast?
time.
I think for every podcast, not just this one, I think it's just the frequency. Like we have the regular interval of the shows, and we were thinking of. We actually haven't talked about this on the show. We sort of skipped. We were planning to have 3 episodes per month, but that turned out to be a bit too much. So then we changed it to 2. So it's like 1st of the month and 15th of the month. And I hope in 1 year I'm not changing this conversation to one per month.
Yeah, I'd say time is probably one of our biggest hurdles. We get so busy with our on the job day-to-day stuff. But we find a lot of, also we have to find a time where we are both awake at the same time, him being in Slovenia and me being in
I was going to say the time zone issue.
Yeah,
wow, that's got to be a tough one.
6 hours, yeah.
Yeah, it's not too bad, but we do something at the end of my work day and it's quite dark there.
Yeah, usually. Yeah, and having like the last time we had Melissa Millaway, and she's in another time zone, so that was extra tricky to settle. But yeah,
yep.
we did it.
Yeah, wow. I was going to say, so you would have Pacific time, Central time, and then Slovenia time.
Central European, yeah.
Central European. All right. Dang, yeah, that would be complicated. You might just send her some questions and have her pre-record it and send you the audio file next time or something. Or work it out.
We'll find the castle. Yeah.
Yeah, it's better live for sure. So, so we got a couple questions getting dropped into the Q&A section, which is good. So of the podcasts that you've done so far, what is your favorite episode? And to go along with that, maybe like which one has gotten the most popularity, right? The most listens, the most likes or votes or whatever, however you, measure the success of the podcast, which one seems to have stood out the most?
Well, I think I can share. I'm pretty sure that in terms of downloads, if our analytics are not lying to us, it's our toolbox.
I was going to say it's probably the toolbox one, yeah.
Yeah. And then close to that, it's, I think, 25 tips for storyline.
Yep.
I know that's high, yeah. But to pick out favorite, I can't say. I really can't say.
Those two are probably some of my favorites.
It's like picking your favorite child, right? I mean, come on. Each one is birthed in a different way, and you spend so much time editing it, putting it together. One kid,
so it's easy for you to pick your favorite child.
Yeah, I can easily do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'd say those two are probably my favorite ones. So it all works out.
Yeah, it's interesting. Those types of episodes for anything, really, I should say, not even really episodes, but that type of content does tend to be what people gravitate towards. It's there's a reason why all the content marketing people say, do a list type thing, or sharing your sharing your setup or anything like that. That always tends to get a lot of because people like those practical tips, right? Like we could sit here all day and talk about this kind of stuff, but this is exactly kind of the direction that I like to take guests on, is picking an area that seems to be really interesting in where we're at, and then doing a deep dive on it, right? And maybe what we can even do is even geek out on some of the setup and the process and how you guys do that. We normally save it for Video Fridays when we talk about the tech stuff, but there's no reason why we can't chat about that today too. Like, for example, you guys have pro mic setups. What are you guys using?
Yes, we do.
I can't, what do you call this thing, Nate? I can never remember the name of my own mic.
Okay, so Dave has Blue Yeti.
Yeah. I have a Blue Yeti, correct.
Good.
Nice job.
And I have, that's the one.
That's the one.
and I have a Behringer mic. I think it's a condenser mic.
Yeah.
With the preamp. So the USB goes in the computer. And actually, I after I left the job and they sort of cut off the e-learning department, I kindly said, I'm taking this with me. So
this will be mine.
Yes.
Yeah, you sound great. Actually, both of you, audio sounds fantastic. So the mics are doing well for you.
Thank you.
Good.
For sure, for sure. So controlling video in Storyline would be cool. Oh, you can't do that?
Well, play pause, and that's more or less it.
Yeah.
That's about it, huh?
Yeah, I wish you could jump around a little bit. But like I do a lot with video, like transitions and stuff. So a lot of times you don't know it's video, but as far as actually controlling it, there's not a lot of control over it.
There's no control of any SIG bar, video SIG bar or the main SIG bar. So jump to 10 seconds, that does not exist, which is a real bummer. Yeah.
Interesting. So, well, Bethany asks, why Storyline? Are you guys familiar with any of the other authoring tools? Do you use them at all in your day jobs, or is it just specifically Storyline developers?
There are others. No,
Ouch.
We do a lot. We do a lot. Like at Illumin, we have all sorts of projects coming in. So we'll do stuff in Lectora and Captivate and Rise and just HTML, custom HTML, all sorts of things. So, and I've certainly been involved in a lot of those projects as well. And Flash, we did a lot in Flash up until, a couple of years ago when apparently it's dying or whatever. But,
yeah.
And so that's kind of been where I was developing from. I was using those tools, and as Flash was kind of leading out, I didn't feel there was something that I could just come up with an idea and it's so kind of easily output something. And then Storyline came along, and when it first came out, it was a bit rough. Like I liked the control and what I could do with it, but it wasn't outputting exactly the way I wanted. And they fixed that up quite a lot over the last couple of years. And I'm happy to use whatever is easy for me to use, and that just seems to be the easier one for me to use. And I feel like I can do quite a lot with it. Any challenge I've given myself, 90% of the challenges I've given myself, I've been able to produce in there pretty quickly. I've been happy with the results.
Nice. Well, it's a strong plug for Storyline, but I don't think it really needs many more plugs.
I should say too, Articulate's done a real nice job of developing their community, and either way, a lot of our clients do ask for Storyline stuff. So it is kind of the most asked for thing at the moment, and so best I know how to use it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And for me,
sure, right? You got to go where the work is, right? If that's what they're looking for, if that's what they use, then you got to jump on board. So let me dial you back around towards the podcast, and I don't mean to keep taking you away from the e-learning stuff, but I just keep seeing questions around that. People are curious.
Sure.
So how do you guys get your podcast out there? Like, do you use a service? Do you do you save it to a hard drive and just serve it up yourselves, or what's that process look like for you guys?
First we record each on our own end, so we don't use the quality over Skype. I match the audio up, edit the audio, throw out all the ums and ahs and mistakes and I don't know what. Publish the MP3, and then right at our starting point last year, a service called Fireside started, so fireside.fm. And and it's a podcasting hosting service. It was developed by a guy that has a podcasting network, so I knew that he knew exactly what podcasters need, and I signed up there, and we're just you upload the file, fill out the data, and set the publish date. It could be in the future, which is a nice thing, so you don't have to be at home and click publish. And it had and it works. And
then Twitter and LinkedIn and all that too. Then it's just getting the word out, and you hit the right topics, and a lot of people will retweet and all that. So that's pretty much how how we word of mouth. That's pretty much how we get people interested.
Yeah, awesome. So fireside.fm. So Craig just started doing working on a podcast with his brother, talking about music, and just chatting about it. And I listened to the first episode that he pushed out there, and I loved it. It was it was the kind of thing that I don't have a whole lot of friends that I can talk about music with, but it's one of those podcasts that it struck me as something I need to do more of. So it'll be nice. So Craig, when's the next episode coming out now? I'm jonesing for some more music talk. So, or maybe I should just call you one of these days. I don't know. But anyways, and Mike Simmons is a podcaster too, just so everybody knows. Mike Simmons has a great podcast called The Catalyst Sale. So if any of you are interested in learning more about sales and the process and all that kind of stuff, and I would highly encourage everybody, even from the learning and development community, to listen to his podcast. They're short, they're right to the point, they have fantastic guests, and we often talk about internally, right? Those that work in a corporate environment doing learning and development. How do we market and how do we get a seat at the table, right? And understanding how to sell what it is that we do in the training department to the executives is extremely important, and getting people to know that learning is important and that it's there. And, there's always something you can learn from the community here and in the work that everybody's doing in the podcasts. So, which is why it's fun to have you guys on board too, because it's always good to know where everybody is and what they're talking about and what they're doing. So this is fantastic. So what other processes are involved? Do you do the whole mix minus thing when you're doing the editing stuff, Nejc?
Not sure what it is.
Well, I guess it would be if you were mixing it live.
No.
Yeah, so you take all so David, you record it on your side, and Nejc, you record on your side, but you're talking to each other via Skype.
Yes, correct.
And then he sends you his file, you match it up. Yep. Okay, so I think the question I saw earlier then, okay, this is making more sense now. So he was asking, what software do you guys use to actually do the recording?
So Dave has Audacity, right?
Yeah, I use Audacity. I mean, it's pretty much all I use other than Skype. Skype's just so we can hear each other at the time.
Yep.
And
that's perfect, yeah.
I'm on a Mac, so it's Piezo by Rogue Amoeba company. They have a lot of audio stuff. This is a cheap
I love those guys. Yeah.
And that just Dave records himself, I record myself, and on the left channel and on the right channel is Dave, because it's recording Skype. So I have his channel to match up with his audio easier.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And then when you have a guest on, then how does that work? Then you ask them to record on their side too?
Yes, if it's possible.
Okay.
But by now it was.
Yeah. Most people know how to fire up something. I mean, you could even fire up QuickTime if you're on a Mac and just record your audio, the built-in microphone, which is actually not too bad these days. They've gotten really good.
You had asked about challenges in the podcast, and I did think of one that I hadn't mentioned earlier, and that is that we're a podcast with no visuals. talking about often a very visual sort of thing. Yeah. And that's definitely a challenge, you know, how do we, because we can get technical sometimes. And so I'm sure that people that might not know the depths of aspects of storyline and some of the tools that are out there might not be able to visualize it all. But I mean, that's why Nejc and I both kind of independent of each other have videos that we post and things like that, so we can kind of leverage those when we're discussing things. And those are like After Effects to produce those, and Premiere, various things like that.
Yeah, I was looking at your YouTube page, and they look fantastic. Yeah, all of the little tutorials there. It looks like you've been doing them. They all say 1 year ago.
Yeah.
One that says 2 years ago. So you've been doing this for a little while.
A couple of years, yeah. But the newer ones, like I'm trying to get more into. I do a lot of like storyline stuff, but you know, like what is micro e-learning and how do you develop courses for that? So those are more kind of After Effects, less me and software, more approaches to things. So trying to do a bit more of those. But then, yeah, if we can bring those things in and talk about it in a little bit more conversation on the show, that's what we like to do.
That is correct.
There you go.
You concur.
Yes.
That's got it. But you're right. I mean, it didn't even dawn on me until you brought it up, right? I didn't even think about that. But yeah, I mean, for a podcast to be talking about, you know, a visual medium like developing authoring an instructional course, that does have to be a challenge. And so how do you guys work through that? Like when you're talking to Melissa, for example, like, you know, how do you guys reconcile all the stuff that she's doing and have those conversations?
Well, the first thing is, while recording, there is no video. So
yeah, when we record, we don't have we turn off video so that we're not making, we don't want people to we don't want our hand gestures.
Storyline, walking through things and talking along with it, or else you might forget to explain something.
Well, I did that a few times because you just forget about some details of the project. But I have to explain it to Dave anyways, and he doesn't see my screen, so I have to make sure if he understands, then hopefully others do too.
Yeah. So I can say, I have no idea what you're talking about, and he can say the same to me, and then we can record that and cut that part out, and it's like it never even happened.
Perfect.
That's the beauty of post-production, right? That's what we love about that. We can't do that here. We just kind of go live and that's it.
Yep. Yeah. The other side of the coin.
Yeah, no take two. But anyways, that's what we like about it. At least that's what I like about it. You know, you never know what you're going to get. I'm telling you. Anthony's not here. Is Anthony in the chat today? So no, I think he's with the online learning conference too. Did anybody reach out to those folks to see if anybody was going to jump in and give us an update on the events? Probably not, but it would be very, very interesting. So give us a preview of what's coming up. You guys must have something in the can that you're working on, getting ready to release. Maybe we can...
Thousands episodes.
I think we're going to be talking about just a couple of things we've been running into lately. We're looking at getting a guest involved, so we're still figuring that out. So yeah, a little bit of storyline stuff, a little bit of just generally learning things, and then probably a guest. I think that'll be what I think we'll record. Sometimes we can record, and like if we have a guest, we can record that at a different time than just our discussion.
We're gonna try like short segments with the guest, not like the full show. So it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes with the guest. It's, you know, we get some content. Guest doesn't have to spend a whole bunch of time with us, and you know, we can try to bring in more people and more opinions.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be cool. I think that's where a lot of these are going. Let me steer us back around towards the e-learning side of things. Since you guys are both practicing, authoring developers and working in the field, I want to take advantage of that before we run out of time and ask some questions that some conversations we've had in other episodes in TLD chat where we're talking about things like, you know, what's the most difficult thing about some of the clients you work with? Maybe not now or before, but when you're doing instructional design projects, like what's one thing that really tends to take things off the rails, and maybe how do you kind of solve that or work with it? Is there anything that stands out?
There's like 50 minutes of that, I think, in episode 17.
Yeah, we can't squeeze that into 20 minutes.
You know, I'm a little bit different too in that it's a company, so there's other things going on. But I'd say, I mean, it depends on. It's all relative. So, of course, for the big picture, it's understanding what the goal is of what you're trying to produce. You know, I mean, if you know, what is the learning gap, for instance, and you know, we want something to orbit around as we're brainstorming ideas, and then I'd say one big thing that we like to do is not worry about technology as we're coming up with ideas, because that can be a limiter, and you start to, well, I can't do that in this thing, when in a lot of cases you can, and so
you know what would be cool, and just go on with that.
Yeah. And then it's just, you know, there's just so many ways to do things, and there's always a way that you would have never thought to do, you know, so you're like, oh, this is the best way to do it. But then there's always, you know, you could talk to someone else, a creative person, it's weird because you got instructional designers and you got maybe creative developers or designers, and some people do both, but really, whether it's someone that can do both or you can get those two people together, that really produces the best, most engaging stuff, I think. Because sometimes as a developer, you might have experience with 3D or something, or, you know, how do you use the space? How do you create the depth and the experience through visuals? And that's kind of one part. And the other part is, how do you instructionally, you know, what's the approach to actually educate, prepare the person, and engage the person? Yeah. So it's really just figuring out ways to combine all those together.
Yeah, it's really, I think the hardest is starting with the client that had no experience with e-learning. So they have a bunch of crazy ideas or none, and then you just try to guide them and show them the right way. And it's a problem if maybe you didn't set up expectations correctly, and then they're not satisfied, and then you make a bunch of fixes for free, basically. So that was my big one with one of the projects. So,
yeah, that's a good point. If you're kind of new to it, if you're new to being a developer, if you don't set up those expectations, it's really not the client's fault that they don't know that you can't change something later on. It's you as being the leader of the production of this thing.
Yeah, does that happen a lot? Like, how do you deal with somebody that comes to you and says, listen, we need a training video, and you ask a few questions and you're like, you know what, it's really not going to solve your problem. Do you guys go ahead and do it anyways and give them what they want, or how do you normally approach something like that? Because I know we all deal with it, right? At least everybody that's in the consulting world. It's like maybe it's not a video, maybe it's something else. Maybe they just think they really know what they want, but you know, looking at the problem that they're trying to solve, it may or may not help.
Yeah, it depends on
sometimes you can,
if they're, you know, if they really want it and they want to pay a lot of money, sure, why not? Whatever you want. I mean,
we do a lot of wireframes. Every project's different, so it's like, is there maybe could they be picturing it differently than we might be picturing it? So then we might create a wireframe, a mock-up, a prototype, something incredibly rough that at least gets an idea of maybe an approach, because the more that you're on this talking the same language, all the way through, the less, and the more you set those expectations, the less you'll have scope creep and problems, you know, as you're developing. But sometimes you just gotta, sometimes you recognize where, you know what, I completely understand why they might be thinking that was going to be the approach, and you just have to go ahead and make the changes.
Yeah, and make the you know, like the demo short prototype, just something to say, okay, is this the direction you want to go, or is this what you were expecting? Just something to see that you're on the right path, not that you build everything and then it's all wrong. So
right.
I think those first steps have to be confirmed, then it's, you know, just off to the races.
And
Katie's right. Scope creep.
You might have some samples too, if you've got samples, because we might, you know, our instructional designer and creative director might come up with, oh, it'd be cool if like we build this really cool, you know, we want this person to have experience coming out of this module instead of just saying, well, I took a course. You know, no, how do they leave the course saying, oh, I've got experience doing that? And we might say, oh, let's create a big video where we take them through a situation and they have to answer questions throughout. So they're really learning through experience. And, you know, it's just figuring out how to, you know, do we have examples that might help our client go, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. That makes sense, because they might not be able to picture what's going to be there at the end. So, it's often, all those things.
You know, once you show them something like that and they see that it makes sense, I didn't feel much of, you know, resistance or, you know, arguments about it. So they just say, oh yeah, that's better, let's do that. So they do listen.
That's good.
Yeah, and once they can picture it, that's a big hurdle there.
Yeah. So let's go into a maybe a more political subject, the LMSs. How do you guys work with your projects and LMSs? Is it a big issue for you? Do you find that there's problems in packaging to run in certain LMSs, all that kind of stuff?
My usual projects are, we need it in SCORM 1.2 and it's produced and it's fine. So, you know, that's basically it. There's nothing special. So they just give you that. They know what they have. They tell you we need the version of SCORM that they know will run in their system, and then that pretty much takes care of it, and you're good to go. Yeah. And for me, for my services, I'm hosted that. So I use Docebo.
Oh, okay.
So if any of the clients doesn't have his own LMS, they can host at our LMS and we manage it, and it's, you know, just some extra revenue there.
Cool. David, what do you run into on that LMS side of things?
Yeah, most of our clients have a learning management system in place, or they're headed in that direction. Some don't, and we work with them to either find an LMS or, you know, we might help host something or whatever it might be. It's just every project's a little bit different, but most of our clients have an LMS, and very rarely do we run into problems where, you know, for instance, and this is technical, but like 2000 and SCORM 2004 version like 3 and 4 in how it can store the data is like a lot more than one, you know. So those are those really unique situations where something's not working, we got to figure it out. But most of the time, here's your SCORM 1.2 package, and we don't have a problem. Sometimes we'll use SCORM Cloud or something, you know. We have to test it before it goes out the door in our QA process. So
right.
Yeah, some would say that, you know, that X API is moving too slow, or it's coming slowly, or too slowly. But I quite like the slowness of the industry, because I don't have time to learn everything, you know, every other week. So, and also on the other hand, you know, SCORM 1.2, it works everywhere. And I know that like 10 years ago, I had a bunch of problems with tracking, didn't work, you know, change this and that, another thing. and it worked in one LMS and didn't in the other. So I like that finally we can say, okay, this works, and I guess now it's time to upgrade to XAPI.
Yes, Sam is asking you, Nate, do you worry about the metadata in the IMS manifest file, the title, the time, description, etc.? I think he's referring to what you just said about a SCORM 1.2.
Nope.
Don't worry about it anymore.
No issues.
Well, and usually we're requested, we're told it needs to be, like we always ask when a project starts if there's, you know, what settings, what preferences do you have? So we're usually building towards that.
Yeah, I mean, whatever the client wants, but usually it's nothing special. But of course, it depends on the client and their, you know, specific needs.
I would assume that some of the clients just don't even really know what they want. So then you've got to go talk to whoever they have administering their LMS or whatever, and just say, you know, what's the deal with the tech specs? What are you guys running? What works? What doesn't work? And you got to figure all that stuff out, right?
Yeah, a lot. You know, certain people that don't have a pipeline for all this stuff, they'll just say, I've got a problem and I need to train people, and then you'll say, oh, well, how will you distribute that? And you know, I didn't even think about that. So if you can't get the course to the person. Still out there.
So that's a great segue into my next question. And before we run out of time, Bethany's got a great question about reconciling the Wcag standards with Storyline. It's the 508 compliance stuff, you know, going from A to AA. And I want to get to that. But before we get there, I'm just really curious, when I talk to practicing consultants out there, what does it look like to you as far as the digital transformation that everybody talks about, right? And this shift. Do you have more clients now coming to you saying, hey, what's up with this micro learning? Instead of doing an e-learning, can you make us a micro learning? Or, you know, do you see any sort of shift like that happening in your projects? Are people asking you to kind of do things differently than you used to? Or is it pretty much still e-learning, do what you do?
For micro e-learning, none of the clients asked about that. So for me, it's just a bunch of tweets that I see to talk about micro e-learning. There were more questions about gamification, or just to have some points or something, just basic stuff because they heard it somewhere, which I think, you know, can be fun, can make the course at least less boring, which I think is also sort of the point. Because some stuff is just boring for some people. You can't help that. And if you make them more interesting, that's better. So no micro yet, just normal stuff, or maybe more complex interactions. You know, like complex drag and drops, or just things that depend on whatever the user chose, you know, 3 steps beforehand and so on. So it's more tailored to the user in terms of their input and what do you show them then. So there is more of that, I think, because also the tools enable us to do that.
Yeah. But David, how about you? What do you see?
No.
Well, and I know, like, Nate, some of the stuff you do, I mean, we've been doing micro e-learning for a while. You know, we want to have shorter courses. It's just kind of evolved that way. Now there's like a title for it, or there's like 15 titles of different micro learning and bite-sized learning.
I mean, whenever we have these conversations, I always just, at the end of the day, to me, it's just good design, right? I mean, if you can design things that are going to be easier to consume, if you have an objective, right? It all depends on what is the outcome that you're looking for, and if you can, you know, if you can do what used to be done in an hour and meet that exact same objective in a 5-minute video or a 5 or 10 minute e-learning course instead of the hour-long one, great, because you're saving everybody time, which equates to money, you know, time back on the job and all of that. So I think it's just, you know, it's just good design. And so it's, naturally, I think everything is moving in that direction to just shorter and shorter. It doesn't have to have a name, but unfortunately, we like to name things.
Yeah, because the example you gave from 1 hour to 5 minutes, that sounds like the 1 hour thing was crap anyway, you know. So it's not like you're producing new stuff. You're making the stuff that was before better. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest complaint about gamification too, or doing gamified learning for the sake of gamified learning. If the final outcome is something that you could have just put in a step action table that somebody could stick on their wall next to their workstation, I don't know. Yeah. I think you'd save a lot more money and have a lot more productivity than making somebody go through a game where at the end of the game, all they know is something that they could have read in a bullet point somewhere. So,
yeah, some people spend a lot of money for the wow factor. Like whenever we talk about engagement, to us, engagement is about connecting. And so you can create this crazy thing with all this stuff going on, and that might be completely not engaging, where you might have the simplest thing and that's engaging. So I think there's a little bit of a misconception as to what engagement is.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, we've had conversations like this, a lot on TLD chat, and it's such a common theme. Katie, who's in the chat, is, and I know everybody's a big fan of telling stories as far as learning is concerned, but whenever I think of stories these days, I just go right straight to Katie because she talks about it at events a lot. And that's always the thing that got me, right? Like we talk about, you get your clients coming in and they're talking about engagement. And at the end of the day, you look at well-written books, right? And that's just text. And so, and those are engaging, right? You read a good book, you read a good blog post, and there's really well-written short articles that can be very engaging and that can,
because it's connecting,
dialed in. Yeah. And it's relevant, right? It's the timeliness, it's the relevance, and it's how it is presented and written. So I think if you take the media out of it a little bit and just think about what it is, what that objective is, and what that end goal is, it helps you kind of focus a little bit more on how you can, make that stuff happen.
Right. Although coming from a multimedia background, you've got stuff sliding around on screen and explosions and all this stuff. And it's like, well, why is that engaging? And again, it's connecting. You're leading the eye, you're focusing on things, you're calling attention to things. So there's one part is the content and that being engaging, but then, there's reasons that you want to do those things. And there's reasons why some of that's engaging and some of it is not.
Well, if you're doing a course for Michael Bay, then definitely use explosions.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a reason for it, right? I mean, we know from all the research that superfluous sort of media or imagery and whatever that doesn't really tie and connect to what you're trying to get across just distracts, and you'd be better off just getting rid of it. But everybody likes a good explosion every now and then. I mean, come on.
So there should be at least one every project, I think.
You should have at least one good explosion. All right, cool. We're about 5 minutes until 9. What are your guys' thoughts on the WCAG, the going from A to AA and the standards in storyline specifically?
I think I'll let Dave answer that one.
Yeah, we're talking a little bit about that in our podcast.
That's the first question. Do you guys deal much with usability standards, or accessibility, I think is the term?
Sometimes, and again, every project's a little bit different. So sometimes we don't have to worry about it as much. We did a big project with the disabled American veterans, and you have to think about that stuff. And in Storyline, they do have kind of a foundation to handle some of that. But when you're doing stuff like, you have to be really careful with drag and drops and really unique sort of things you're trying to do. But you have to know up front if that's going to be a key element of a project. If you have to worry about it, mobile, all that stuff, how it's going to work. Storyline does a pretty good job with it, from a base, but you just have to be really careful with it when it comes to when you're being really creative with it, knowing you have to consider 508 and all that stuff. I guess that's my answer.
Does Storyline have like a button that you click on it and it does a check to see if you're compliant?
There's just a bunch of stuff. There's like the way you can even set up tabbing and all this stuff, and so people can navigate through it. And and work with it, and alt tags and all these things. So there's just these, you have to do things all the way throughout. There's not like a single button you press. You have to know what you're doing, and you have to test for it after the fact.
Do you run into that, Nejc?
No, there's, in my experience here in Europe, there were no requests for any accessibility things. So maybe just the companies I work with, they don't have any demands like that. But we were shortly looking into that with Dave, because that's also the question we have for the e-learning guys. But
yeah,
it seems that only US has a standard for that, and there's like international ones slowly like adopted around the world, but there's no international standard for that accessibility. And so I have not run into this, but I'm expecting that this should come up in the future.
Yeah, awesome. Hey, we just got a couple minutes left. I just want to say thank you guys for hanging out with us today and chatting with us on TLD Chat. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, so tell everybody where they can find you, like your day job and your website and what you guys do, and then we'll pimp the podcast too for you.
So with me, my business is Lumen Group, illumingroup.com. We also have eLearningLocker.com. You can go to youtube.com/eLearningLocker, which I think was posted there. And then I'm on Twitter a lot, Dave_Charney.
Awesome. Nejc, how about you?
You can find me on Twitter under what's the nickname? NEJCD. Or Nejc, and eLearningBrewery.com, which is just website that has just my contact info for now, because I had not had a chance to do the English website. But of course, eLearningGuys.com. And if you have any questions for us, please do send us a question.
Yeah, do you guys have one mailbox or just one website people can go to ask questions or to get more information?
Yeah, through Twitter or the form on the website, yeah.
Yep.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, thanks again, guys. This was an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thanks for hanging out.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you again.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and close your videos, but we'll still be open for a few more minutes so you can jump into the chat and answer a couple more questions or say hey to folks in there too. So again, thank you guys so much. Appreciate it. All right, everybody. That was David and Nejc eLearning Guys podcast. Fantastic stuff. I was one of the things I forgot to mention, we were talking about podcast and gear, and Adam Curry is coming out with this this Podcaster Pro device that pretty much has all the preamps and the settings and all the stuff in it. It's pretty pricey, but if anybody, I know most of you guys do it, are pretty good with the tech yourself. So just buying a nice like mixer and preamp and whatnot, you can figure it out yourself. But you know, to have a cool product like this, I always thought was cool when I first heard about it. So I can't personally afford it, but if anybody does get a chance to check it out, I would love to hear how you like it. But anyways, it is 9 o'clock, and that means that TLD chat is another TLD chat is in the can. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for hanging out today. And Sam, thanks for jumping in. I didn't get a chance to bring you in to tell us about the online forum stuff. I hope maybe you'll be available tomorrow, perhaps, to jump in, but we can talk more about that for sure, because tomorrow is Video Friday after all. So and I think we do have Colin Steed on tomorrow, right? Sam, is that correct? Is he still available? Oh, the online learning conference just ended. Well, there you have it. So then everybody will be back for Video Friday. That's what I like to hear. Yes, we've got Learning Now TV just happened, went early this morning, and I think there will be, it comes on again a little bit later. Oh, Colin's up later. Okay, well, that's fine. So we'll definitely figure out something for Learning Now TV as well. I mean, for Video Friday, but as long as Sam, as long as you're on board, it'll be fantastic. We'll talk about all sorts of fun, cool stuff. So everybody hit us up, tldc.us if you have not already, and get all signed up as a member and get the discount for the event coming up in January, and join us in Phoenix, and we can all hang out for some fantastic learning and community networking and sharing of all of the things that we do. We could even do some stuff on podcasting and even maybe go live from the event, which I think will be fun to do. So lots of stuff to talk about. Video Friday coming up tomorrow. Everybody have a fantastic day, and we will talk to you later.